Hey there, it's JohnBerry555, and welcome to my review of Star Wars Andor Season 1, Episode 11, Daughter of Ferrix. So this is the second to last episode, so they're getting us ready for the grand finale, wherever that may be. And by all that, we gotta get all the characters to Ferrix. We gotta get Lucian there, we gotta get Cassian there, Vel, Dedra, Cyril, and yeah, those are probably the main ones we want to get there, because certain ones like Celta is already there and a few others. I don't think Mom Monster will go to Ferrix at all, because that would not make sense with her story. She's the political intrigue part. She's dealing with the politics of the things, not with the the boots on the ground aspect. She's fighting the Empire politically. She's not in the trenches. That's all the other characters we're dealing with. My monster, what she's doing is separate from all that, but still very connected. But we also got to factor in with what's going on with my monster's story is that she's the one who's making it possible for them all to be able to fight the Empire. She's the one who's making speeches trying to prevent the Empire from being too overhand. She's the one who's also helping to provide funding. That's why she's important to the story, because, well, granted, Cassian, his story has not really intersected with her story yet, but it's Lucian's story that's connecting them together, because Lucian is essentially forming the Rebel Alliance, but not as an alliance, more as just a bunch of interconnected cells of the rebellion that may or may not be friends with each other, and may or may not want to fight each other. But Monster, she's the one who's going to, I think, actually bring those cells together. Because she's doing something very different than Lucian is. Lucian, he's cloak and dagger. He's the one who's fighting in the shadows. Monster, it's clear that she wants to fight in the open, but she knows that she can't because of the Empire. But she's still doing what she can, kind of in the open. Essentially presenting herself as a nuisance to the Empire, but not necessarily a deadly nuisance. All the while, she's like, here's some money, rebels, here's some money. And that's like what she's doing. But that has gotten her into trouble. And that brings us to what we see of her story in this episode. And it's not much, but her and her cousin Vel are talking. And Mama is just pretty much putting it on the table that how much potential trouble she could be if the Empire discovers basically that she's been using her accounts to fund rebels and not actual charity and all that. And kind of alludes to the fact that she does have a way out, but something that she doesn't want to do. And surprising that her husband, Perrin, is not willing to do it. And that's an arranged marriage for their daughter. But I do kind of like how once it's like, basically asking, like, Vil asks Mom Monster, like, she's doing this, and Mom Monster says, yeah, it's one of the few things she's on time for, which is kind of interesting. But that probably means Mom Monster's daughter's rebelling against Mom Monster by putting herself more into traditional Changeling culture, which is kind of weird, but does in some ways make some sense. Kids love to rebel against their parents. It's a very common thing. So it does make sense that if she's rebelling against her mother, well, she sees her mother as kind of distancing herself from many traditional Changeling culture aspects, so maybe she's just going to go do more of it herself. But one kind of interesting thing is Mom Monster does drop the line that to Vel that, surprising on this issue, Perrin is quite progressive, quite basically in agreement for that. Their daughter doesn't have to follow the traditional cultures of Changeling and all that, which I do find very interesting. Kind of show that, okay, maybe he's an out of touch person who's really just, he's a socialite. He's not in there for politics. He's not there for wealth or glory. He's there just to party. He's a socialite. That's all he is. Despite all of his problems, how he's not really a supportive husband, how he's kind of very dismissive of all Mom's work, and how he's, not really, he's turning a blind eye to all the problems of the Empire. That doesn't necessarily mean he is totally beyond saving, for lack of a better term. Don't think that's going to happen there, but it's kind of nice little subtlety right there. But should really get back to Cassian's story, and we find out at the start of this episode that Cassian's mother has passed away. I know many people are expecting her death to be at the hands of the Empire rather than old age, but it kind of does make sense that it's old age. I mean, we don't get to see that a lot in Star Wars of a character dying of old age. It's normally because the Empire killed them or something like that. But this does make sense. It does show that this this important character to many people on Ferrix and to Cassian is no longer in the picture, but not necessarily because the Empire did anything. But the Empire has not done really anything to her because they want her as bait to get Cassian. Well, that's obviously going to happen now that Cassian knows, because he does eventually. Him and Melshi get off Narkina 5. They get some help from some locals after the locals kind of mess with them a little bit. But I think more so just to confirm that they'll actually escape prisoners and that that Imperial is testing their loyalty. That's the impression I got from that. But they help them get off. They go back to the beach planet where Cassian gets his stuff, including the young kid from the Dari heist, his journal and all that. And they agree to part ways. Now, Andor, Cassian, he doesn't tell Melshi that his mother died. So I wouldn't be surprised if Melshi picked up that despite Cassian said everything was okay, that not everything's actually okay. And he gives a good reason for them to separate and go to separate ways. They don't know if anyone else got off the prison planet. And I'm liking that they're keeping that unconfirmed, that we only confirm that these two get off the planet, the two that are in Rogue One. That's all we know for sure. But I'm liking that they are, the characters, Cassian and Melshi, are acting under the assumption that nobody else got out. And since nobody else got out, we must split up so that way we can make sure we show what has happened, what the Empire is doing. And by splitting up, they increase their chances. That does make sense. But that also means that Melshi won't be there on Ferrix. But I think that's poignant. That's purposeful. Because his story is about the rebellion. It's not Cassian's story of becoming a rebel. Melshi's story is tied with Cassian's, but it's not Cassian's story. He's for the past couple episodes, he's been there as a supporting character, helping Cassian along. But for finishing up Cassian's story that turns him into the rebel that we see in Rogue One, Melshi doesn't need to be there at this moment for it. So he can go and make contact with the rebels. He can go and share the story, while Cassian is out there going to Ferrix, going to his mother's funeral, and springing the trap that ISB obviously has planned. And also that Lucen has planned as well. That's going to be very interesting. But it's already interesting because both Cinta and the ISB agent who's undercover on Ferrix, just to keep an eye on things, I think they both get temporary jobs at the same location. And looks like they both don't know that they're spies. So Cinta might realize he's an Imperial spy, but not the other way around. But it's like, did they get jobs at the same place for undercover work? It's kind of hilarious. The same kind of like cafe or something like that by the looks of things. But that's just kind of they're both watching the same thing. They're both keeping an eye out for the same person. Both are wanting to get the same person, but they don't realize it. Of course, I have a feeling when everything comes down, like Vel, she'll stop Cinta and the ISB. Because I'm getting the impression that Vel, she's wanting to go more the Mon Monster style of rebellion. Less cloak and dagger, no, not the cloak and dagger, but less secrecy, less she is less impartiality. Because Lucen, he's willing to sacrifice Anton Kriegel so that way he stays safe. And he convinces Saul through cloak and dagger and deception not to go help Anton Kriegel, so that way Saul doesn't get captured and reveal Lucen. Lucen's all about preserving himself. So he's fully willing of Cassian cutting it, so that way he stays safe. But he's obviously going to go to Ferrix as well, even though he was warned not to by his assistant, because of how many people are going to be there. But he's going to go there, and Sarah's going to go there. It's all going to come to head, and everyone's going to get caught, pretty much is what I'm expecting to happen. And I think doing all this will help shape what the rebel is going to be. Is it going to be what Mon Mothma wants, an organization standing for the return to decency and democracy, or is it going to be Lucen who's willing to fight the Empire regardless of the cost, much like Saul? We're seeing Saul's paranoia here, and that's in contrast to, in a way, Lucen's paranormal. Saul's paranormal is more of an unhinged paranormal that could cause him to act rashly, if you will. That's what his paranormal is doing to him. But Lucien, his paranormal getting caught means he's willing to sacrifice anybody to stay safe. He'll sound sane when he's saying that. He'll sound like, we can't like he's literally said, I can't risk my ISB plant. No, you can't. That's not why you don't want Saw to help. You don't want Saw to help because Saw knows you and could lead the Empire to you. That's why you don't want to sacrifice him at this stage. You don't want him to get captured. Now, if that was the sure thing for him, then you probably would be a little different tune. And he was, and like literally, he didn't want to make the decision about Anti-Krieger, so he convinced Saw to make the decision the way he wanted it. Really, Lucien, he's not coming out of the next episode. That is my prediction right there. In fact, I have a feeling a lot of characters, except for Cassian, will not be coming out of episode 12. But we just got to wait to see on that. I hope you did enjoy this review. I know I talked a lot about it, and there's one thing I really need to talk about before I finish it off, and that's with the droid. B6? No, that's not, I can't remember his name, but essentially, like, he's depressed that Cassian's adopted mother, Marva, is dead. And you can tell at the beginning, he didn't quite understand, like, they literally said, I'll wait for Marva to return, when that's not really a possibility. But, like, how everyone in Ferrix is treating him respectfully, you know? And there's one scene where, the person who Cassian got to help create a cover story for him, and all the way back in episode 1, he, after one of his shifts, he agrees to spend the night there, so that way the droid, whose name I forgot, won't be alone. Let's be real, droids in Star Wars have always been alive. The writers, when we see, have always treated droids as sentient beings. Well, not always, no, the nameless ones one, but the main droids have always been treated that way by the writers. And our main heroes have always treated droids well. The worst, I think, a main character who was supposed to like has treated droid has been more like how they would treat a pet. That's still pretty good, because that's real. Some humans treat pets better than they do other humans, so that's just something to keep in mind. But even still, we don't often get too often where any of our main characters are treating droids as people, as their own persons, even amongst the main characters. We do get that a lot where they're treating them like pets very well. In many cases, pretty much like people, especially among our main characters, our heroes. But let's be real, we don't see side characters doing that. We don't even see our main characters do that with one-off droids. Sure, Luke gives R2 lots of well-treatment and treats R2 pretty much like a person, same thing with Anakin. But that random bad droid that attacked them, no, they don't. That doesn't get the same consideration. Now, how would the people of Ferrix respond to an unknown droid as well? I don't know. But in this scenario with this droid, they acknowledge his personhood, and that's pretty profound. And that's something Star Wars needs to do a lot more exploration. We got a little bit of a solo in the connecting materials because of L3, but there's still a lot more that they could explore with that, and I do hope we get to that point of exploring that. Well, that is truly all I have to say in this episode. I hope to see you again next week for my review of episode 12. But in the meantime, let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of Daughter of Ferrix? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Also, please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And check out the links that are down below. And as always, have a good day, good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you, always.